Hello friends, welcome to Technique. This is Nirmal here, and in this video we will be doing a quick camera review of the new Vivo T1X. So Vivo T1X was announced a couple of weeks back, and this is an entry level or budget smartphone price around 12,000 rupees, and this is Vivo's kind of entry level chip with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 680 being the processor powering this. Now it comes with a triple camera setup, so let's see how good the camera experience is for this price segment. So before getting started, if this is your first time on this channel, do hit that red subscribe button and also hit the bell icon to get notified of all the videos we publish. So let's begin. So first let's have a look at the hardware. So it's come so first let's have a look at the hardware offered. Now it comes with a 50 megapixel primary sensor, f1.8 aperture. The secondary camera is a 2 megapixel macro sensor, and a third one is a 2 megapixel depth sensor. So you miss out on the ultra wide angle camera on this device. Now on the front panel you get an 8 megapixel selfie camera. So that's the camera hardware. It's a very basic camera hardware except the primary camera. Everything looks pretty basic. So let's see how good the camera experience is on this device. So looking at the daylight capture, you can see here the camera produces decent looking images. The colors are pretty good. There is a decent amount of dynamic range too. The colors are good in a way that it doesn't saturate the images and more or less natural looking, and the vividness of the images is preserved. But what is lacking in these images is the sharpness levels. You can see that it is not really sharp, especially the edges of the images doesn't look that sharp. The overall quality is quite acceptable, but for a 50 megapixel shooter we would have expected a slightly better overall sharpness. So that's the daylight captures. It looks quite okay for social sharing, but not so great in terms of sharpness levels. Next, moving on to the close-up images. So here you can see that it produces decent looking images. Again, the sharpness levels is not so impressive. And again, the exposure is not really that impressive here. Also, the contrast levels are not so impressive. Once again, the macros are kind of very much average. The 2 megapixel macros looks like washed out. There is no sharpness levels as well, and the detailing also looks very average with the 2 megapixel macro sensor. So that's the macro quality of the Vivo T1X. Next, let's move on to the portraits. It produces decent looking portraits, although skin tones are not very accurate. It is again quite acceptable for this price segment. The background blur also looks quite okay, and the edge detection seems to be decent, but with complex object it does get messed up. Now coming to the low light images, in indoor artificial light it produces decent looking results. Once again, noise is controlled to a bit, but again the sharpness levels are not so impressive. But when light falls further and when you toggle the night mode, you can see that the dynamic range looks way too average, and there is not much of detailing available, and the night mode doesn't work to an extent where you have details. So it's very much average in terms of performance in the night mode turned on. So that's the Vivo T1X in terms of low light performance, which is strictly average. Now moving on to the selfies are quite bright, vivid, and the dynamic range also looks good, but once again the sharpness is kind of very much average, and the skin tones are also slightly whitish in nature, but not a major concern. But once again, for social shares this should be decent selfies. The low light selfies also turned out to be quite okay when there is adequate artificial light. The edge detection in portrait selfies seems to be a lot messed up, not really that impressive in terms of portrait selfies. The phone can record videos in 1080p resolution at 30 fps. There is also 60 fps supported, but only for 1080p or rather 720p resolution, and the video quality looks quite average at its best. So this is the front facing camera sample taken with the Vivo T1X. We can judge how good the quality of the video is, and also the audio output from the video. So that was the camera review. As you can see, the primary camera sensor performs quite well. It is adequately bright enough. It has decent colors, decent sharpness levels as well for the 12,000 price segment. The close-up shots also came out quite well. The portraits are again acceptable, but things change when you use the macro mode. That was not so exciting to use, nor it had great results as well. Apart from that, the low light experience was very much average for this price segment. And video recording, there is only 30 fps support for 1080p resolution, although you get 60 fps at 720p, and there is no electronic image stabilization being offered, so that's another downside. And selfie cameras turned out to be decent as well. So looking at the overall aspects, at a price segment of 12,000, it performs decently well. It may not be a stellar performer for the price segment. The primary camera performs definitely well, except for the low light, but otherwise it's kind of very average setup without the ultra wide angle camera, and the macros are kind of very average. So that's the camera of the Vivo T1X. So what do you guys think about the camera on the Vivo T1X? Do let us know in the comment section. This is Normal signing off with a camera review of the Vivo T1X. Hope you enjoyed watching this video. Do hit that like button and also hit the subscribe button for more videos. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you in our next video. Have a great day.